people of Reddit, do you ever ignore text messages of your friends or family for no apparent reason? Why or why not? I sometimes don't know how to respond. I like to keep conversations going, so I really dislike sending back one-word answers. But sometimes the texter doesn't really leave me with many options, so I sit on it and then forget. Yes, my family frequently send me messages that are basically Facebook/Instagram posts for people without social media, a picture of some random thing they saw and thought was nice, a quote they heard, link to a petition, etc. I like staying in touch with them, but I just don't have a strong response to many of these things other than that's nice, so I don't respond in the moment and then I forget. And then I look back at our text chains and realize it's a miracle my family talks to me at all because I'm truly terrible about responding. I hate how cell phones have made it culturally standard that you must constantly be available to talk with someone. People get annoyed if their calls go to voicemail, or if you even just leave them on read. Calm the hell down everyone, I'm not a freaking customer support line. Just because I'm not able to talk at the exact moment you contacted me does not mean I'm disorganized and improper. And yes, hard as it might be to imagine, there are times at which I might check my texts, and yet not be able to respond to them immediately. To be fair, I do the same thing, ignore messages for a while if I'm not feeling up to answering, but nobody has ever called me out on it. It's more my own anxiety making me think they're awaiting a reply so urgently. Sometimes I drop into IRL conversations that I'm bad at replying, and that sometimes I ignore my phone for a while if I want to unwind. Seems to work okay. Yes, this. I hate how cell phones and just technology in general have become such an essential part of our lives. It blows me away that people can't function without a cell phone. I'm currently deployed in another country, so it's hard for me to keep contact with my people back home that are 11.5 hours behind me while I'm also working 12-hour shifts 6 days a week, and they still get mad at me for leaving them on read or not opening the message for days at a time. Sometimes I'm just mentally not in the mood to respond or hold a conversation, and people getting pissed at me doesn't make me want to jump at the sound of them calling. I hate how cell phones have made it culturally standard that you must constantly be available to talk with someone. My employer tries to take advantage of this to the nth degree, but I've pushed back every time it's happened. I once had a coworker text me at 6:40 a.m. on a Saturday, asking me to take care of non-urgent work business that day. It's a 9 to 5 o'clock MF kind of job, so it's not like I have Saturday shifts or something. I'm a pretty passive guy, but that got a back the fuck up reaction that was strong enough that they haven't bothered me since. My boss once called me on a Saturday asking me to drop everything and represent the organization at an event he'd found out about last minute. I answered because I figured if he's calling me on a Saturday it must be an emergency. I'm one of the people who get called in the event of a burglar alarm or a fire, so that's where my mind went. I declined because I was 2 hours away and out hiking in the woods, but I would have said no regardless. You don't own my weekend and get to tell me to drop everything on a moment's notice. With the nature of the work, it's easier for people to have my cell. But fucking boundaries, people. I've never worked at a place where there are so many issues with it. People get annoyed if their calls go to voicemail. I think this is a stupid cultural norm, and I'm trying to help people get over it by sending them to voicemail liberally. I saw you called, leave a message if you really want, I'll get back to you sometime. I ignore the person I tutor if he starts texting me too much. It's mentally draining, and sometimes I need a break. My parents were those people in the 90s that would forward chain mail daily to their entire contacts list. Now they both have Facebook accounts. You bet I ignore a lot of their messages. If you are one of the few brave ones who will like and share this to everyone, thank you. If you don't, you are a baby killer. The only person I don't ignore messages from is my wife. Her meme game is top-notch. Yes. Constantly. I don't have the mental energy, even for a short general conversation. It feels overwhelming. It took many years and many failed friendships to have the circle of friends I have now. I am very lucky to have friends that are understanding and patient with me. I famously go AWOL for weeks at a time. Just pottering about ignoring the world and only able to communicate briefly. I have had friends in the past take this personally despite my explanations, but I have to prioritize my own MH over others. Oh, absolutely. Family relations are kind of toxic and complicated, and sometimes I just can't gather the energy to answer a simple small talk text just because of anxiety associated with my entire family. Sometimes I just don't feel like talking to them, and sometimes that's validated by my mother losing her mind if I wait 2 hours to text her back on a work day sometimes. My mother is clingy and I can't handle that given the abuse she swept under the rug, and am just so wildly estranged from literally every other member of my family that they're lucky to get so much as a one-word text back on a good mental health day. Sometimes I just don't feel like talking to them, and sometimes that's validated by my mother losing her mind if I wait 2 hours to text her back on a work day sometimes. Solidarity. My mother sounds a lot like yours, and if I don't text back straight away she'll blow my phone up. Are you receiving me, house_autumn? And please text me, babe, I'm worried about you now. Geez woman, I was working and your message wasn't time sensitive and didn't really need a reply, so it wasn't a priority. I don't reply to every text, I don't see the need to. If my mom has a work due, I'll agree to give her a lift home and she'll tell me what time but will text me if it changes. She'll then text me within an hour of being there to see if I'll be picking her up at the agreed time, despite already having agreed to it over a dozen times, no exaggeration. She'll phone me a few minutes later asking if I've seen her text and why I didn't reply. I tell her every time we've agreed to, then several times, why do I need to agree it again? Literally always. It's kinda bad. I prefer to see them in person and talk to them, but with COVID it's been kinda hard, so I lack the energy to text them. Also, I feel like phones kinda cheat the friend and social group necessity humans need, so I try to stay away as much as I can without being a total hermit. Lol. Sometimes I ignore my dad's text messages, mostly when he asks me how I'm doing, pretty much because I don't want to lie to him and say everything's fine, but I don't want to make him sad by telling him that work's been hard or something happened with the car. General young adult in the real world struggles. Every time I do just not respond, he messages me about how he's sorry if he made me upset, that he wants to hear from me, knowing that my guilty conscience immediately screams out, and I of course call him. I'm sure someone else has this same problem, going through struggles and shutting everyone out. Just know that no matter how bad it is right now, your friends and family are there for you and would rather hear your troubles so they can help rather than not hear from you at all. No, never. I always respond because I never know what's going on with the other person. Then if I don't feel like talking, I can let them know. The only exception is if someone is talking shit to me for no reason or a shitty reason. For example, my mom blew up my phone when she found out about my tattoos. I temporarily blocked her until she got over it. Absolutely. Responding takes thought and energy. If I'm going to respond, I want to do it right. And sometimes I don't have that energy, so I make a note to respond the next morning or something. I actually have a little time set aside before work for texting people back. It's important to put time and thought into your friendships. But it's also okay to acknowledge that nobody, even the people you love the most, gets to demand your time immediately if you don't want to give it. Part of the problem with phones is we're always on call, no pun intended, but there's no reason it should be that way. I think as long as you're honest with your friends, they'll understand that sometimes you don't want to talk right now, but that you'll get back to them as soon as you can. Obviously none of this applies if it's an emergency. I'm just talking about your basic "hey, I want to chat about XYZ" texts. Yes. Sometimes I don't have the energy to answer right away. Sometimes I need to think about how to answer. Sometimes I forget to answer. Sometimes I don't want to look too eager, which is a vaguely high school concern. I try really hard not to be passive-aggressive, but I have waited before just because I was hurt. A friend was behaving like I was no longer important, and she finally texted me, and I just felt like, well, fine, if I don't matter, you can wait. This was not a mature response, and I do not recommend it. Generally, I just feel like I don't have the energy to respond. Specifically, I'm insanely depressed. My parents told me last Sunday that they wanted to talk to me over FaceTime because they're worried about me. I've been putting that off ever since because I know they're going to ask questions like, "What's wrong?" and "How can we help?" But I don't have answers for them. Also, the chance that they'll ask what I've been doing to study, and I would either have to lie and say I've been studying, or tell the truth and say I wake up then stay in bed all day until it's time to go to sleep again, which might incur their wrath.